Goodwin's victim and ex-girlfriend posted to social media several times before her death, sharing that she was afraid of her abuser, Goodwin. Now, the YWCA of Dayton is working to make sure that others like LaShonda Childs can be protected by law from their abusers.
This is the story of LaShonda Childs.
Got me so f***ed up. Like, I just woke up. I'm talking about 20 messages back to back, screenshots, this about you, this and that, this and that. Like, man, this 11 years older than me. I'm 17, he 28. What the f*** is you doing on Facebook? Over here trying to, you feel me? Like, you make yourself look stupid. This mad because I don't want to come over his house because he got fleas. Like, I really need a brother so he can go over there and be his. This don't got no car. He don't got no house. He live with his sister and his mama. Like, I'm not about to keep doing this with the same. Like, already, where my restraining order at? He already violating restraining order. Like, baby, I do not do this.
On September 21st, 2018, 17-year-old LaShonda Childs went live on Facebook. She named a man, 28-year-old Trendell Goodwin, and alleged he had been abusing her. In the days that followed, her warnings escalated. Reports of threats, assaults, and police interventions had already been documented. Childs had an active restraining order against Goodwin. Law enforcement records show prior arrests, probation requirements, and multiple incidents of domestic violence complaints. Yet contact persisted. 11 days after her social media post, Childs was at a residence on Shoup Avenue. She placed a 911 call. The transcript records her stating that Goodwin was armed and threatening her boyfriend. Within minutes, before police could arrive, shots were fired. LaShonda Childs was struck. Emergency response logs confirm she was transported to Grandview Medical Center, where she died on October 3, 2018, 2 days before her 18th birthday. Trendell Goodwin was later arrested at a nearby location. Court documents indicate he was charged with murder, felonious assault, and weapons offenses. Further investigation revealed a history of prior arrests, previous assault convictions, and multiple complaints from other victims. Plea records show Goodwin ultimately entered a guilty plea and received a sentence of 18 years to life.
He still has some life left to live.
29-year-old Trendell Goodwin will spend 18 years to life in jail for the murder of 17-year-old LaShonda Childs. He won't be considered for parole until 2038. But Childs' mother, Nina, says this can never bring back her daughter.
My daughter no longer have a voice that we can hear.
But it never fully closed the wound. We still have a lot of information that we don't know what happened.
Before her death, LaShonda posted to social media about how scared she was of Goodwin, her ex-boyfriend. She even had a restraining order against him, but it didn't save her life.
When you have that really, really high risk of violence and death, sometimes it's still not enough.
For YWCA Grant and Advocacy Manager Sarah Wolfknight, this story is all too common.
Unfortunately, LaShonda's situation was not unique, and that many women every day in this country are killed in domestic violence situations because there are firearms present. So we are working really closely with our legislators.
Child's family says they'll have to carry on as best they can, but they'll never forget LaShonda.
Just trying to move on, live a normal life, you know. We still think about it all the time.
This is the complete story, every action, every chilling detail. Welcome to Everyday True Crime. Make sure to subscribe and hit the notification bell so you never miss a case. Stay with us for more gripping investigations and raw true crime stories delivered daily. Now, let's dive in. LaShonda Childs was a 17-year-old resident of Dayton, Ohio. She was active on social media, frequently sharing updates about her daily life. In the weeks prior to her death, Childs posted publicly about threats and incidents of abuse she said she experienced. These posts documented specific encounters and named the individual she identified as responsible, providing a public record of ongoing concern. Her social media activity became a timeline of escalating conflict and served as one of the earliest documented warnings before the fatal incident. Trendell Lamont Goodwin, a 28-year-old male also from Dayton, Ohio, was identified as Childs' former boyfriend. Records show Goodwin had a history of criminal activity prior to the fatal shooting. Arrest records and court filings indicate previous convictions for assault and weapons-related offenses, establishing a pattern of violent behavior. Law enforcement reports also show that Goodwin had prior interactions with the police, including incidents that involved threats, physical confrontations, and violations of protective orders. Childs and Goodwin's interactions were documented in multiple police reports over several months. These reports included complaints from Childs, documenting alleged physical abuse, threats, and property damage. A restraining order was active against Goodwin, legally prohibiting contact with Childs. Despite this, police records show that Goodwin continued to have access to her locations and continued to engage in confrontations. Each incident was logged, creating a detailed timeline of escalating behavior prior to the shooting. The combination of Childs' documented social media activity and law enforcement records provides a chronological framework for understanding the relationship between victim and suspect. Childs' posts indicated ongoing fear and repeated threats, while Goodwin's documented criminal history and prior arrests demonstrate a pattern of violent conduct. Together, these records outline a factual progression of events leading up to the fatal shooting, including the repeated violations of legal protective measures. According to public records and reporting from local news organizations, LaShonda Childs and Trendell Goodwin began a romantic relationship in or around September 2017. At the outset, Goodwin reportedly misrepresented his age to Childs, claiming to be younger than his actual age of 28. Family accounts indicate that he initially told Childs he was around 20 years old when they first met. This age discrepancy was documented later in court records and statements by family members during legal proceedings. The misrepresentation of age was noted as a relevant factor because Childs was 17 at the time the relationship began. Throughout late 2017 and early 2018, there were multiple law enforcement contacts related to disputes between Childs and Goodwin. Dayton Police Department records show repeated calls for service involving the two, which included reports of physical force, offensive behavior, and property damage. These incidents illustrate a pattern of recurring conflict within the relationship. Law enforcement records indicate that officers were dispatched on more than one occasion in response to complaints from Childs and her family regarding Goodwin's conduct. On January 31, 2018, a police report indicates that Goodwin allegedly prevented Childs from leaving a residence, leading to police intervention. According to the record, officers were called to a location after Childs' family or Childs herself expressed concern about her being held against her will. Officers conducted a forced entry into the residence to ensure Childs' safety. During this intervention, Goodwin was detained and subsequently arrested by Dayton police. The specific charges tied to this incident reflected the concern that he was unlawfully restraining Childs. This incident was documented in local police logs and later referenced in court filings related to subsequent legal actions. On February 19, 2018, Childs contacted police and reported that Goodwin had struck her during an argument and inflicted physical injuries. The Dayton Daily News reported that Childs claimed Goodwin hit her face, bit her left shoulder hard enough to leave a mark, and caused abrasions to her neck and nose. Police documentation confirmed the following findings during their investigation of that report. Childs had fresh bite marks on her left shoulder. Swelling and injury were observed on the left side of her face. Additional abrasions were noted on the right side of her neck and nose. Based on these observations and the victim's statements, officers arrested Goodwin. Court records indicate that he later served 19 days of a 180-day sentence for misdemeanor assault. Following the February 2018 assault arrest, the court issued legal orders governing Goodwin's conduct. He was ordered not to have contact with Childs. He was placed on home detention. He was required to undergo counseling related to assault charges. The imposition of these conditions reflects standard domestic violence protective measures designed to prevent further contact or escalation. Goodwin was also placed on probation, with specific requirements tied to domestic conduct and compliance with court orders. On September 10, 2018, probation conditions and a criminal protection order were reaffirmed by the court. The terms included the following restrictions. Goodwin was ordered to stay at least 500 feet away from Childs at all times. He was barred from contacting Childs by phone or any direct communication. These conditions remained in effect throughout the fall of 2018 and were part of an ongoing probationary period tied to earlier legal proceedings. On September 13, 2018, police records document another involvement with Goodwin. According to reported accounts, Goodwin allegedly attempted to take Childs' phone. He pulled off her wig and then set it on fire, which resulted in burn injuries. After this sequence of actions, Goodwin fled the scene before law enforcement could apprehend him. The incident was logged by responding officers and added to the documented history of interactions between the two. In the weeks leading up to the shooting on October 2, 2018, Dayton police responded to multiple calls involving shots fired and alleged threats related to Goodwin. Among the reports in September 2018, a resident claimed that shots were fired toward Childs' home by Goodwin. Police records indicate that officers responded and documented this account as part of the ongoing investigation into Goodwin's behavior and the recurring threat he posed. Another report from a separate incident noted that Goodwin, known on social media as Trenny Mac, allegedly threatened another woman after she suggested he seek help, though that woman did not pursue charges. These additional reports further illustrate the frequency and severity of disputes during the final months of 2018. On September 21, 2018, Childs made a public post on Facebook that detailed ongoing violent incidents and described her attempts to obtain legal protection. The post was widely shared and included specific references to the repeated abusive conduct. Her online statements explicitly mentioned the seriousness of her situation, including the existence of restraining orders and previous assaults, and served as documented public evidence of her ongoing efforts to alert others and seek intervention. Following Childs' public post, responses and interactions appeared on social media, some of which included comments attributed to Goodwin under the alias Trenny Mac. Screenshots of these interactions were captured and later referenced in reporting. These online exchanges were part of the documented pattern of communication and conflict between the two prior to the fatal incident. On October 2, 2018, Childs made a 911 call from a residence on Shoup Avenue in Dayton. According to the dispatcher transcript, she stated that Goodwin was present with a firearm. He had reportedly pointed the gun at her boyfriend's head. She reiterated that she had a current restraining order against Goodwin and that police had previously advised her to call if she saw him. Childs provided the address and identification information about Goodwin to the dispatcher during the call. After the 911 call, police were dispatched to the Shoup Avenue location. Multiple units were sent to investigate reports of a firearm being present, potential threats, and shots fired. Authorities blocked portions of the street to secure the area and began a multi-scene investigation. Investigators also responded to reports of a victim transported to a medical facility, which they used to triangulate the sequence of events. According to reports, after making the 911 call, Childs and her boyfriend attempted to leave the Shoup Avenue location in a vehicle. Law enforcement accounts indicate that shots were fired into the vehicle while it was in motion. Childs was struck by at least one gunshot during this exchange. The involvement of her boyfriend as a passenger at the time was documented in police reports. After the shooting, Childs was not transported by ambulance. Instead, she was driven by private conveyance to Grandview Medical Center, later renamed Kettering Health Dayton. This method of transport was noted in the initial medical response reports. Hospital personnel received Childs in critical condition and documented her injuries. Medical records indicate that she was treated for at least one gunshot wound to the head. LaShonda Childs died early on October 3, 2018 from injuries sustained in the gunshot incident the previous day. Her death was ruled a homicide due to a gunshot wound to the head by the Montgomery County Coroner's Office. Her death occurred 2 days before her 18th birthday, according to public records. On the day of the shooting, Goodwin was arrested at a residence on Mama Avenue in Dayton by local police officers. He was initially booked on a preliminary count of felonious assault related to the shooting incident. Within days, prosecutors added murder charges along with other felony counts tied to the discharge of a firearm and assaultive conduct. Goodwin's case proceeded through the Montgomery County Common Pleas Court. On the morning his trial was scheduled to begin in 2019, he entered a guilty plea to murder, felonious assault, and weapons charges. A judge sentenced Goodwin to 18 years to life in prison. An attempt by Goodwin to withdraw his guilty plea after entering it was denied by the court. On October 2, 2018, following the shooting incident that resulted in the death of 17-year-old LaShonda Childs, Trendell Goodwin was apprehended at a residence on Mumma Avenue in Dayton, Ohio. Law enforcement officers responded to reports of shots fired and threats made against Childs and her associates. Upon arrival, authorities confirmed Goodwin's presence at the residence and arrested him without reported resistance. Following standard booking procedures, Goodwin was processed and held on preliminary charges of felonious assault, pending further investigation. Within hours of his arrest, prosecutors reviewed the evidence collected from the scene, including 911 call records, witness statements, and ballistic reports. Based on the evidence, Goodwin was formally charged with 2 counts of murder, reflecting the direct involvement in the fatal shooting of LaShonda Childs, and 3 counts of felonious assault, corresponding to additional victims or attempts during the incident. Additionally, he faced 2 counts of improper discharge of a firearm, reflecting the violations of Ohio state law concerning firearms within residential areas. These charges were filed to reflect both the fatal outcome and the potential harm to bystanders. In initial court proceedings, the court set a bond of $1 million, indicating the severity of the charges and the assessed risk of flight or further violent behavior. This amount represented a precautionary measure to ensure the suspect remained in custody during ongoing investigation and pre-trial procedures. The bond decision was consistent with the nature of the charges, the defendant's criminal history, and the risk factors evaluated by the judge. Following formal arraignment, Goodwin entered an initial plea of not guilty. Court records indicate that his defense team requested several continuances, resulting in multiple scheduling adjustments. These delays were attributed to changes in legal representation and preparation requirements. The court issued procedural orders detailing the obligations of both defense and prosecution, including disclosure of evidence and coordination for pretrial hearings. During the pretrial period, prosecutors compiled comprehensive documentation supporting the charges, including police reports, witness depositions, surveillance footage, and forensic analysis of firearms and ballistic evidence. This period also included formal statements from victims and family members, though the focus remained on factual verification and legal procedure rather than subjective narrative. On the scheduled start date of Goodwin's trial in September 2019, court records indicate that the defendant entered a guilty plea. The plea encompassed charges of murder with firearm specification, reflecting the aggravating factor of using a firearm during the commission of the homicide, as well as discharge of a firearm near prohibited premises and felonious assault charges. The guilty plea was filed under the terms reviewed and approved by the Supreme Court of Ohio to ensure compliance with procedural standards, including confirmation that the plea was made voluntarily, knowingly, and with legal counsel present. The plea effectively concluded the need for a full jury trial, allowing the court to move directly to sentencing procedures. Court records confirm that Goodwin acknowledged responsibility for the acts described in the charges and accepted the terms as part of a negotiated plea arrangement, which included specifications regarding firearm use and the sequence of assaults associated with the case. Following entry of the guilty plea, the court proceeded to sentencing, consistent with Ohio state guidelines for first-degree murder and associated firearm specifications. Trendell Goodwin was sentenced to 18 years to life in prison, reflecting the mandatory minimum for cases involving premeditation, use of a deadly weapon, and resulting fatality. The sentence included provisions for incarceration without eligibility for parole until completion of the minimum term, in accordance with Ohio criminal statutes. A subsequent motion filed by the defense to withdraw the guilty plea was denied by the court, reinforcing the finality of the plea agreement. Court documentation indicates that the motion was reviewed and assessed for procedural compliance, voluntariness, and legal sufficiency, with the judge determining that no procedural irregularities justified rescinding the plea. If this story gripped your heart and left you questioning the truth, don't forget to hit that like button and share it with others who need to hear it. 4 more chilling true crime stories that dive deep into the mysteries behind these tragedies. Make sure to subscribe to our channel and turn on the notification bell. You won't want to miss our latest updates, investigations, and thought-provoking discussions. Thank you for being part of this journey with us as we uncover the truth and seek justice. Together, we can make a difference. Stay safe, stay aware, and we'll see you in the next one.